Hey gang, welcome back to another stream with some amazing alumni. My name's Craig. Today with us we have Bertrand and Jared. Before we start diving into some cool questions and things like that, just put it out there. If you have any comments or questions or anything like that, pop them in the chat. We'll try and ask live on stream. We won't be able to ask every question, but it's always good to pop as many stuff in there as you can, and we'll see what we can get up to. But with that, I'll pass you across to Jared. Whoop.
Oop.
Jared can't hear you, and is that Craig's fault? You're saying, oh, nope, there we go.
Hello?
That's Craig's fault. Here we go. Cool. Those of you that had bet on Craig making a weird audio error, congratulations. You get all the money. But we'll take it away, Jared.
Thanks very much for that, Craig. Hey, Bertrand, how you doing?
Yeah, good. How are you? Can you hear me?
Doing well, thanks. Yes, can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. Yeah, good. Just checking. Maybe Craig did another one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Doing very well, thank you very much. All right, so let's jump straight into it. So, for those of you in the audience who have not met him before, this is Bertrand. Bertrand, would you be so kind as to introduce yourself? So, just starting with who you are, where do you work, and what your role is there.
Yeah, of course. So my name is Bertrand, and I'm an Associate Technical Director at EA Firemonkeys. This is a studio for Electronic Arts, and we are based in Docklands in Melbourne. Although at the moment we're all based in our homes because we're all working from home, which is great. And so as an Associate Technical Director, it sounds fancy, but it just means that I'm the lead engineer of the Sims Mobile engineering team. Yeah.
Awesome. So you mentioned sort of acting as kind of the lead engineer on that team. What kind of responsibilities does that involve? Like, what kind of stuff do you do with the team?
So I do a lot of planning and people managing. So I work with the designers and the artists, and together we plan the features that we want to make for our game. And I want to make sure that we can help them achieve this by finding out what kind of programming they need in order to make that happen. It could be for a feature, it could be for a tool, they might need some help. So I make sure that we have enough people, enough engineering resources to achieve this. And I tell people, spread across the different tasks to my team to make sure that we can achieve the work we want to do.
Right. What's that been like since you mentioned that your team has all been working from home for the past little while? What has that been like? What kind of changes has that made to sort of the way that you go about things?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's been a very challenging time for us, but we're very lucky that we're in an industry that is doing very well at the moment. People are stuck at home playing games, which is great. So you should stay home and play some games. Yeah, it was interesting. We do a lot more talking to each other. We have a lot more meetings, which is has a bit of overhead, but it's actually very nice to see people's faces. And what we've actually been doing is we all made a secret Discord channel where we all have a voice channel where we can talk to each other like if we were in the office. So for instance, you just raise your voice and say, hey, something is broken. Is that someone's fault? Like, who did this? So it's been very useful to recreate the environment of the office. I even made myself a special office for people to talk to me personally. So yeah, it's been interesting, but we're used to it now, and we're pretty good now. Actually, we quite like it.
Nice.
I think I could speak for a lot of people who are tuning in this evening when I say thank goodness Discord is a thing that has appeared in recent years. It's been I think a boon to a lot of teams.
Definitely, yeah.
All right, so with that as sort of the starting point, why don't we take it back a few steps? So let's go right back to the beginning. So when did you know you first had an interest in programming?
So I was actually quite a late bloomer in terms of programming. I decided in year 12 that, after high school, I probably should do something with computers because computers are getting more and more involved with our lives, like phones are getting also like tiny computers now. This is like 10 years ago, over 10 years ago. Yeah. And I thought it was going to be useful to learn how to program and do computer stuff. So that's when I started. I actually started at university. I did a Bachelor of Computer Science at Melbourne University. And that was the first time I actually did programming. I never did before. And I was very jealous of all the other kids that did that in high school because they were a lot, they had a head start. But yeah, that's when it started, and that's actually when I was doing that in my second year of uni. One of my assignments was to make a game, and that's when it clicked for me actually that programming, you can actually make games and it's super fun. And anyway, that's where it started. This is my origin story.
Right. That's pretty awesome. And I don't imagine that that would be an uncommon sort of experience for a lot of people because, particularly, going back that long ago, 10 or so years ago, there wasn't really that much in the way of options in high school to be able to do that kind of programming. So a lot of times it did actually sort of require you to go out to university to sort of start experimenting with that stuff. But I guess that's actually probably a good question. Did your school actually have any courses or subjects that would actually allow you to try and explore that kind of coding?
So I'm originally from France. So I don't know if it's a good topic here, but my school didn't have any options for me to do that. I don't know if it's the case in Australia, so I can't really talk about that. But I heard from people that it was, even in Australia, it wasn't that common to do programming in high school. Yeah, so that's why I didn't do anything until university. So that's why I decided to do it after high school. I had no options to do it before that. But yeah.
Right. So you sort of mentioned a little bit of your motivations for wanting to go and study programming, but what was it about the course at Melbourne University and then going on from there? What was it that made you want to then study at AIE?
Oh yeah, so I'm going to tell something that might be controversial, but
Do it.
Programming, like just programming in general, it can be quite boring. So I was doing my Bachelor of Computer Science and I was learning things, and it was, wow, like it is useful, but oh my God, it's boring. and then as I said, one day I did this assignment which was teaching us specific things about programming, and the best way to learn about it was to make a game. And that's when it clicked for me, and it was like, oh my God, like that's amazing. I love this. And as a kid, I wanted to make video games, but then when I grew up, I was sort of thinking I should do, a real job. But then when that happened at uni, that changed again. I was just amazed by just like a little airplane with a scrolling background, and here you go, I had a cool plane that was flying around in the world. Like it was just amazing. It blew my mind. So then I researched, video game schools, and back then, again, it was a while ago. There wasn't that many options, but there was AIE, which apparently at the time was the best, and I still think it's up there. But um, yeah, so I read some good things about it and decided to apply, and I finished my bachelor's degree, and then I went straight to AI to learn how to make games because that's really what I wanted to do.
Oh, awesome. Do you remember that much about like the application and interview process for yourself? Like, what was that like?
So for me, it was very easy because I was an international student. Therefore, I didn't have to do the interview, which was good. But I did talk to people, to teachers there, and the interview is apparently quite chill. It's more about getting to know you and why you want to do this thing, and they ask you a few questions as well. I mean, probably shouldn't ask me for that. You should ask those people about how the interview is. But I had to provide like a little portfolio of work that I've done, and I just sent like a CD drive of like little games that I made the last year or so, to show like, look, I can code. I like making games. Those are pretty basic because I don't know how to make games yet. That's what I want to do with you. So I hope you like it. And yeah, I hope I become a student there. So I didn't feel too scared because I was coming out from a bachelor's degree. So I knew programming already, and I had this passion. Like I really wanted to make games, and I think AI could see that they want to give people chances, and they want to see people who are really willing to do the work and make games. So I wasn't too worried about it.
Good to hear. Yeah, so you were fairly confident that with your background,
Yes.
you were pretty confident you were going to be able to get yourself in.
Yeah.
Cool.
And it was pretty a smooth process as well.
I might just jump in because we've got a question that kind of relates to that. So here we have Mark, who's been a trooper and been to a bunch of the streams so far. As far as what would you need for the portfolio to get into the programming course, I'll kind of split this between a bit of Jared and sorry, Bertrand, you said you showed examples of coding you had done. Any languages in particular you had been using at that time?
It's a while ago. I think I remember there was a game that I made in Java, which was like a 2D Zelda game kind of thing. It was actually an extension of one of my assignments. I made an assignment that was like that, and I loved it so much that I kept on going. So I added more levels. I added a 2-player mode. I added all those things on top of that. And I added also a Tron game. It was like a 3D Tron game that I wrote in C. And that was the two main things I was really proud of. And that was enough. So I sent the actual application so they could play it. Hopefully. I actually don't know if it worked. It was pretty hard to deploy an app back then. And there was a project as well, so all the code. So I had a Java application and a C application.
Nice. But yeah, I guess also any language that you've done, any programming is the kind of stuff we like to say. But sorry, back to your questions, Jared.
Yeah, I actually should also mention that I actually applied to study in game programming at AIE around the same time that Bertrand did. What I personally submitted, I submitted a Flash game. It was a very basic game of Pong that I built myself using Flash and ActionScript it was at the time. I think that's still available in Adobe Animate nowadays. But I adapted it for the fact that I was the only one playing it. So I actually adapted it to just have a big wall on one side, and I actually added gravity to the ball, so it would sort of steadily bounce around. It would lose a little bit of momentum, and you get a little bit of a boost as it hit the paddle and stuff like that. So, you don't whatever you end up creating, as long as there's a lot of sort of your own work that went into the creation of it. That's kind of the real important thing when it comes to putting your portfolio together.
Cool.
So jumping back into our next question and going to sort of the next step, what was your first few months of study like? Like, did you sort of go much beyond what you had learnt through your previous course, sort of after 6 months, a year?
Yeah, definitely. So I don't know if it's still the case, but when I was studying at AIE, you were in a computer lab from 9 to 5, and all you're doing is programming, 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 which was great because I needed that. When I went to university, I thought that it was very much about, the theory was very academical, but it wasn't really much practice into it. So I knew code, but I didn't know how to code very well, I have to admit. And it was exactly what I needed to just sit down in a computer lab and just do programming from 9 to 5. And I felt like I've learned a lot more like that than just reading books and going to lectures at university, to be honest. Yeah, it was great. And then I was surrounded with people who were like me. They just like making games, and it was a great environment, even though it was a very dark lab. But programmers like, the darkness.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so following on from sort of the early parts of your studies, jump into some of the later parts is working as a member of a team. So that's something that we actually do still actively in our courses. So particularly across all of our game study areas, we get a lot of the students all together to get working on various group projects to sort of get some experience working amongst different disciplines and things like that. What were some of the projects that you created during your studies?
So we made quite a few. There was quite a few assignments and projects. So yes, you're definitely right there. The one I remember the most, there's two actually. There was like a little 2D firefighting game that we made. It was really cute, and it was all done with programmer art as well because we didn't have an artist at that time. It was a lot of fun because we played with, like, particle effect and water and fire and all that. It was really cool, and it was a bit easier because it's just 2D. Um, but then my favorite project was my final year project when we were in a team of like 9 people, and there was 4 programmers and 5 artists, and we made this really cool survival, like horror survivor game when it's like you're in the dark and you got to shoot some aliens, and you've got your little robot with you that follows you and do stuff for you. Like it was really good, and that's when I sort of stepped up to be like the lead of the project because there were so many people. Someone had to, coordinate all this, and no one was really, willing to do it. So I said, well, I want to do this project, so I guess I'll do it. So yeah, that was really fun, and especially working with, other people than programmers as well was really interesting because that's when I learned about, they have their way of working and they might need certain things and they might not understand, they might not think the same way we think, and it's very important to think about the other people of your team as well. So we make the game, but I also wrote some tools to help the artists, design the levels and things like that. So yeah, it was very fun.
All right, cool. And I guess just to wrap up this whole sort of section of discussion where we're sort of talking about the sort of the study phase of your career, do you feel like you were happy with the skills that you got from studying at AIE? Do you feel like it was the sort of the main sort of contributing factor that actually got you work in this industry?
Oh, definitely. I think uh, the AI is actually, I'm guessing still the case, but you don't really have marks. You have, skills that you have to tick, and they really go through a lot of the things that you need when you work in the industry. They try to simulate what it is to work in the industry, and we had to pitch our game idea to people, and we had to prove them that we could do it within 6 months, so things like that. So really, I think it it was definitely some good skills, and I mentioned also the group projects and like talking to people and obviously programming and things like that. Obviously, you can't always prepare 100% for the industry, but I think that they gave us a really good shot. Even near the end of the second year, I remember an assignment was to create a website and a portfolio and all that to actually be out there. We had to make a LinkedIn profile and all that. It was really great. They really ticked a lot of the boxes that will help you to find a job.
Oh, awesome. All right, so this is sort of a natural break in between our two sections of questions that we've got here. So we're going to be jumping into a little bit more of your sort of early career and sort of how you ended up where you are now. But before we move on, were there any more interesting questions that we've got for this section, Craig?
Yeah, there's a few there, and I'll pop up some video of stuff that you have been working on in some parts, but you can give us a bit of a rundown of if someone may have grabbed some wrong footage or anything like that. So while we're just looking at some cool footage of this game, do you want to tell us a little bit about what we're having a look at? And I guess the question that we also have was, what's your favorite part of working on The Sims Mobile?
So what we're watching right now is The Sims Free Play, which is a game that I worked on for 5 years. But about a year ago, I moved to The Sims Mobile, which is very similar but a bit different. And I think it's really my favorite bit about working on any game really is you make something, and then millions of people then play it and they post online about it, and it's just really just that feeling that you make something and people interact with it and they have fun with it as well. So you kind of thinking like you're doing something that brings joy, entertainment to the world. And when you think of like right now with what's going on in the world, it's even more important. People are at home playing your games to pass time and That's to cool. Almost like mentally stay healthy as well. Like it's so great. Like I think that's my favorite bit. Like cool. I can't just pinpoint one thing. It's just this. I think it's the main thing, but the rest is all just features. Yes, it's fun to make features, but that feeling is probably the best out of all the things that I could think of.
Yes, I realize this would probably be very rare, but have you ever seen anyone play the game in the wild? Like you're walking past and you're like, oh.
So let me think. I have not seen anyone in the wild playing my Sims games. Unfortunately, I mean, I did hear stories about people playing in the wild. Like someone at work was like, "Oh my god, someone on the tram was playing this game, playing our game." It's like, cool. Oh, so cool. But I did see people playing the game I worked before that, which was Fruit Ninja.
Nice.
I actually worked on Fruit Ninja, and I've seen people actually play that in the wild, which is pretty exciting. Yeah, it's very nice to see people playing your games. It's like, oh my god, look.
Nice. I guess just one other quick one from me. Do you, being a programmer, do you deal much with the game artists? Thanks for that one, Jess.
Yes, I do. So making a game is all about teamwork and collaboration. So you have to deal with not just programmers, but artists and designers. And I mean, I guess it's a bit different because I'm the lead, so I have to interact with all those people like on a daily basis to make sure that they can do their job well, to make sure that when they finish their work, we can actually implement it in the game. But when you're a sole programmer on the project, I guarantee that you will deal with artists and designers at some point, but you might not always have to do it. But it's something that you can't escape. You're going to have to work with them and, just be open to they're different people, they have different needs. And what matters the most at the end is that you work together to achieve the game. We even have people which we call technical artists who they're programmers, but they do a lot of tools and things to help the artists actually. So there's a lot of crossover between those two as well.
Cool. But yeah, we'll go back with you, Jared.
Awesome. That actually jumps very nicely into our first question in the new section. Since you mentioned Fruit Ninja, the first job that you picked up following graduating from AIE. Was that working on Fruit Ninja?
Yes. So it took me maybe about 3 months after graduation. There wasn't that many jobs out there when I graduated, which was a bit scary. And yeah, I have applied for Halfbrick, and yeah, I got the job. Not in the first try, actually. I interviewed twice. The first time I didn't get it because I was a bit rusty. Because it's been 3 months since I didn't get a job. But yeah, I interviewed a second time shortly after I picked up my game, and yeah, and then I got the job. And yes, it's the first game I worked on was Fruit Ninja, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was awesome. But then I stayed for about a year, and then I moved to EA to work on the Sims Free Play that you can see right now on the screen.
Nice. So did you? So how long was the switch between your job at Halfbrick and your job at EA? Was there much of a gap between?
Oh no, I sort of quit. So I left Halfbrick for EA. So yes. So on Friday I said goodbye, and on the Tuesday I was working at EA, and it was a long weekend. So actually, like that's why. Like Monday was a holiday. So otherwise it would have been the Monday.
Nice, awesome. So, so what kind of stuff were you doing, kind of in the early days at EA? So your role, it was a software engineer, right?
Yes. So I was one of the engineers of the team, and I was making some new features, fixing some bugs, making some bugs, and yeah, just working with the team to implement some cool new features. I think one of my favorite things I did was maybe you could do like finger painting, and when you could actually, once you're done, you can actually grab the painting and put it on the wall. That was pretty cool. I was pretty proud of that. I mean, that's many things, yeah, that I've been doing. I was just like, yeah, just helping out with features.
Nice. So how did you go from that to managing the team effectively?
I guess I like being a. I don't like just being a piece of the puzzle. I like being the one who put the puzzle together. And for me, just doing one thing wasn't enough. I wanted to do all the things, but I'm only one person, so I couldn't do all the things. You can't do all the things. But what you can do is you can lead a team so that together you can do all the things. And that must have been, I guess, clear for my manager at the time. And I think he saw something in me and realized that people like me and I could talk to people well. And he said maybe it would be a great fit. So he gave me a try. I was in charge of multiple features, and over time it grew more and more. And then I was in charge of the team. So yeah.
Right. No, that's really cool. And I don't think a lot of people get the opportunity of finding out, not just how you end up sort of landing your job, because that's sort of something that's a very sort of common experience of going through the interview procedures and all of that kind of thing, but getting an understanding of what it's like to go from your starting point and actually sort of make your way through and gain more and more responsibilities and all of that sort of thing. So it's really cool that you're able to share that little story with us. So we're getting a little bit close to time here, so I'll just wrap up with a couple of sort of key questions here. So just to wrap up, where do you hope to be in the next 5 to 10 years?
Oh, well, I hope my boss is watching. I think I think I wouldn't mind being in charge of multiple projects, so multiple teams. Eventually with time, but I've been doing mobile games for 7 years, roughly, almost 8. I think I wouldn't mind doing a console game because it's a bit different. The challenges are different, the problems are different, the solutions are different. Just to do something a bit different. But yeah, I think I wouldn't mind either of those two things. just keep naturally growing.
Yeah, that's like from what you've described, it seems like a pretty sort of natural progression for what you've been doing thus far. So definitely wish you the best of luck for that.
Thank you.
So one last question before we wrap up with maybe one or two questions from the audience is, what's your advice to someone who wants to study and then work in the game programming field?
Well, my first advice is you've got to be passionate about wanting to make games. In my class, and Jared was there actually. You can ask him. A lot of people dropped out because they just thought they like the idea of making games because it's cool. It's games, but they didn't have enough passion to actually sit through and actually make a game. So you really have to be passionate about that, and because when we interview someone, the passion is something that we really want to see in people, because even if you lack the skills, even if you're not quite there yet, we can teach you. You'll be surrounded by a team of many engineers or many artists if you're not a programmer, if you're something else, and you can learn from people. And I think being passionate about wanting to make games is something that is really important. And in the meantime, just keep making games. Just keep making games, have fun with it, experiment. Because if you can go to an interview and can show us that, look, I've done some games already, I like doing this is just fun. We want to see actual things that you've made. We want to see what you've made and your passion.
Definitely. And that's a great advice, not just going out into the workforce, but being able to come study with AIE as well. So the process of actually getting into our courses is very much about showing that you've actually got that interest to see your study throughs and actually get yourself to the point where you can actually make a career out of this. So having that attitude coming into it and holding on to that attitude all the way through is definitely what's going to get you there. Awesome. Thanks very much, Bertrand. Before we go anywhere, Craig, do we have any particularly great questions that we can bring to Bertrand here?
That's a tough one, because to me they're all great because they asked them, and that's the most important thing. We'll just quickly end with this one from Nikki. You're the lucky person. Let's see. Cool. I don't know if it'll pop up on screen, but I guess while you're working, do you go home, or to continue working on your skills, do you keep working on side projects when you get the opportunity, or does work kind of take all the game programming out of you?
Yes. But I think with time, I've just put all my effort into my work, which I love. I think if you love what you do, then work isn't really work, right? Like it's enough for me.
But yeah, taking that time to just get away from the computer, do other stuff, I think that's super important and well worth the time as well.
Especially right now, we all are home in front of computers all day. It's important to go for a walk. Do something else, relax, listen to music, baking.
Yeah. Cool.
Awesome. All right. Well, we're pretty much at time at this point. So unfortunately, we're going to have to let you all go and unfortunately say goodbye to Bertrand. But thank you very much for giving us your time, Bertrand. I'm sure I speak for everyone here in the audience tonight to say thank you so much for all of this wonderful wisdom that you've given us.
Yeah. Just before we leave, everyone, I'll just remind people that Open Day is coming up on Saturday, May 16th. So if you're looking for some of the questions that we didn't get a chance to, those kind of questions will be answered during the Open Day. And then this time next week, or actually this time but half an hour back in the past, in a week's time, we're also going to have Nicholas, who's a grad who worked on Ashen at A44 and is doing cool stuff with them. But yeah, make sure you come along to that if you're able to. But thanks so much, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Bye. Bye. Whoop. There we go. And fade.